Donald Trump, he has departed to China. He's going to be there on Wednesday, which is tomorrow. He's going to be there and he's going to meet with Xi Jinping. And then he's going to leave China on Friday. But before getting there to what would happen with the in this meeting with Xi Jinping, he was waiting for Iranian response to that proposal, American proposal to Iranians for 4 days, which was the Iranian response was somehow, it wasn't expected. I don't know what did he expect from Iranian side, but he was disappointed by the Iranian response. What was in that response? Basically, from what we've learned from Fars News, one of an official news agency in Iran, which is connected to IRGC. It says that the 5 points, these are, preconditions to start the negotiations with the United States. Basically, the United States is talking about the nuclear program. Donald Trump is talking about the nuclear program. Before leaving the United States, he said it's all about Iran is not going to get the nuclear weapon. Here are the preconditions, 5 points: ending the war on all fronts, compensating war damages, releasing frozen assets, lifting of all sanctions, recognition of Iran's sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. And that's why Donald Trump said it's unacceptable, and he called it a garbage, piece of garbage they sent us. I didn't even, have time to read it. And what was the point, in your opinion? It seems to me, Larry, that Iran understands that the time is not on Donald Trump's side. It's on their side. That's why they didn't respond it so quickly, because basically they're talking about 10-point and 14-point plan they had before.
Right.
And they didn't change anything in this new response to Donald Trump. What do you make of it?
I think that's the fundamental statement of what Iran would take to negotiate further, if you will, or to come to any kind of ceasefire, genuine ceasefire, and achieve some sort of end to this war. They're giving the essence of what they will accept, and all of those things are probably, there's no, you didn't even mention the nuclear program. All of those
it's not
things,
there.
Yeah,
they're not negotiating on nuclear program.
Yeah. That's the most glaring thing looking at it. I lost my bet on his trip to China because I didn't think he'd go. I said 50-50, but I was putting my weight on the 50 no-go side. I think that's going to be a real bad experience for him. Whether it's Wang Yi delivering it or whether it's Xi Jinping or the two together or whatever, it's going to be a very bad experience for him. And if he's going to try to get Xi Jinping to help him with whatever it is with regard to his idea of how to end the conflict, I think he's going to be sadly disappointed. So I don't know how to judge the coincidence of all of this coming together at this particular moment. It may just be serendipity. But I think we're looking at, again, as I've said before, we're looking at probably Netanyahu's plan, which is to resume this war and to go back full scale against Iran with everything that America has marshaled in the region, most of it being air power that is not even necessary from the ships in the region. It's going to be air power coming in from all around, and it's going to be everything America has, with everything that America has to in the way of ordnance to drop on Iran. And that's going to be 11 or 12 days maybe of bombing, and then we're going to say, okay, you see what our answer is. Are you ready to negotiate now? And they're going to say no. And where are we going to be then? I mean, I'm not totally convinced that Iran would be able to withstand that kind of assault and still say no. They might find it very difficult to even say anything at that point because it's going to be so devastating. But I don't think it's going to break their back or break their will. So we're back at the same thing with a whole lot more innocent people killed and a whole lot more ordnance spent, and ordnance, very frankly, that probably we need for other things. So it's not a good situation. Not a good situation for either side.
Yeah. Larry, looking at the points that Iran just mentioned, I think they're not seeking for a treaty or some sort of, you know, temporary agreement between Iran and the United States, like what we have with JCPOA. In my opinion, the fragility of JCPOA was that it wasn't ratified by the Congress. That's why the President of the United States could withdraw from JCPOA without having that sort of repercussions.
But just
And
think about that comment, though, that you just made. Think about that comment for a moment. How on earth could anybody in any negotiation with any president in the future think that anything that president said or did or swore to or promised was worth a damn? I mean, what you just said is true, but it wasn't true of past presidents. It wasn't true of a general track record of American presidents. It wasn't true of a general track record of American Congresses either, particularly the Senate. It was not that difficult to get a treaty that was in the interest of the country, national security interests, economic interests, or whatever, ratified by a 2/3 vote in the Senate. I mean, look at the treaties that we ratified. And those treaties have the force of domestic law by our Constitution. So, what are we saying about the empire when we say that you cannot make an agreement with the empire's leadership and expect it to stick? We're saying that it's going to change with every 4-year period or 8-year period or whatever, or even more frequently. So, how do you go about conducting business in the world if that is known by the rest of the world about your trustworthiness? Trust is probably the most important ingredient of diplomacy, ultimately. And diplomacy is the relations of nations. Best said, that's what diplomacy is. So, how can you have relations with other nations when you are utterly untrustworthy? They don't care if it's 4-year intervals. They just care about whether or not you keep your word. And we don't keep our word. So we are crucifying ourselves in a world that is going to have an alternative summit in India in September, whose purpose is comity, cooperation, sustainability, innovation, and resilience, and things like that. That's what BRICS is saying to the world, while we're saying to the world, you want to know our policy? Our policy is military, sanctions, and untrustworthiness. Who is the world going to listen to? I have no question answering that. The world's going to listen to the other people. We're crucifying ourselves is what we're doing. And this war is just prima facie, in your face, stark evidence of what we're doing to ourselves.
I see, Larry, the way Iran is talking about negotiations, I see they don't want to negotiate with Donald Trump. They want to negotiate with the United States. They want the United States to be responsible for this agreement.
Yeah, well, that's the way anybody making an agreement like this should feel. I mean, you don't want to think you're making the agreement with Vladimir Putin. You want to think you're making the agreement with the Russian people. Even if you're in the Soviet Union, you know, when it was, people said it was run by one man or by a Politburo. That was all hogwash. No nation's run by one man, not for very long anyway. Ask Adolf Hitler.
Yeah. And the reason I'm saying this, because the lifting sanctions on Iran is not in the hand of the President of the United States. He can somehow alleviate or somehow reduce the effect of sanctions, but he cannot lift the sanction. It's about the Congress.
Exactly.
And that's the way that Iran started this negotiation. If there is no will in the establishment, they're basically talking with the establishment in the United States.
Yep.
They're not talking with Donald Trump.
They know us better than we know them. That's what we're saying. Now, there's some people in this country that know Iran fairly well, but no one in the administration. I don't think there's a single solitary person in Trump's administration that knows Iran more than a quarter inch deep, if that. But they know us. They know us inside and out.
Larry, what do you make of this new aircraft carrier or the new submarine in the region that is capable of, shooting nuclear missiles? And what is that? Why does the United States need to announce that? Because they can keep it far away and they hit the target. They don't need to announce it. And is that part of the sort of pressure on Iran?
I wanted to say two could play at that game, but it's more than two that could play at that game. At a minimum, it's three: Russia, China, and the United States. And Russia and China together equal our submarine fleet and even surpass it in some ways, because China has very quiet diesel boats. And those diesel boats are just prime for the North Arabian Sea, the Sea of Oman. That's a very special body of water in terms of submarine operations, the convergence zones, the salinity, the temperatures and everything. We would talk about it at the Naval War College, where you would have a Russian attack sub and a U.S. boomer ballistic missile sub, and they'd be lying beside each other. And the one would not even know the other one was there, because passive and active sonar and other capabilities of surveilling your whereabouts, as it were, they don't work well in that water. It's fabulous water to hide in if you're a submarine. So what are we saying? Are we saying that we're going to shoot a nuclear weapon possibly? Are we saying that we're going to shoot a Trident off a ballistic missile submarine? What kind of a threat is this? I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever, because everyone knows we're not going to do it. Or do they? Is this Trump again trying to seem like an insane man to increase his leverage with Iran? Don't think it's going to work, Donald. Don't think it's going to work. Your standard operating procedure doesn't work here.
Netanyahu is suggesting in his latest interview, he was mentioning that the war in Iran is not going to end anytime soon. We are months away from the end of the war against Iran. And what does that mean, Larry? The war started, Donald Trump was said to us that it's going to take 4 days, then few weeks, and then right now Benjamin Netanyahu is talking about months ahead. Donald Trump himself said we are not over with the war against Iran, 70% in, and who's running the show? Is Benjamin Netanyahu? It feels that
Benjamin Netanyahu has started out running the show, I think, and very much so. But let's examine a few things that Benjamin Netanyahu has said, and let's examine his situation. One, he has started talking about, and I wasn't stunned to see this. I was maybe a little surprised to see it so early, but he is already talking about divorcing himself from the United States. He's talking about maybe cutting off the money because don't need it anymore. And he's also hinting that he has other places to go and other people with him to talk who might be more cooperative with him than the United States. I'd love to know who that is. He's also talking about winning this election coming up. And his party is splintering even as he talks about it. Read Haaretz's online edition for today, and you'll see that they have real problems right now. They may even have what is the equivalent of a vote of no confidence in this government. It's a little bit different than the British Parliament in the way they do it, but it takes 4 Knesset votes in a row, I think, bang, 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 all doing the same thing. But they're having certain party leaders right now saying that's what they want. And it grew out of the business of whether or not the ultra Orthodox are going to serve in the IDF or not. But I think there's a lot of fatigue with Bibi Netanyahu too. So he's got that problem. And then he's got the problem that he is, as you just intimated, at the center of all this. And he's being beaten badly in Lebanon right now. And he's dealing with that by moving ever further north of the Litani River and by taking on Lebanese civilians in their homes and everything else in order to prosecute this conflict. And he's killing a lot of people that aren't Hezbollah by any stretch of the imagination. So he's in this trap that he's created for himself, political and military. And the only thing he knows how to do is keep going. And he is doing that. And he's doing it successfully to this point. But I'm not sure that either politically or militarily it's going to continue. Is he going to recognize that? And what is he going to do in either category if it happens? I don't know. I can't read his mind that way. But I do know he's in trouble. And I do know Israel's forces are in trouble. And there's so many indicators of that right now that you would think there would be some people in the Israeli military leadership really speaking out. You've got some that are speaking, but they're not really being pointed enough about what the problems are, whether it's the KIA rate, the WI rate, the PTSD rate, the suicide rate, or whatever. They're all very bad right now. Also, the no-show rate is not very good, especially in this last complement of reservists. So Israel's got real problems right now. And if they don't do something to keep Iran from executing its next list of targets, as it were, then Israel is going to disappear. I mean, they're very heavily hit in this next. There's going to be no holdback if they go. They're going to go after the region. They're going to go after facilities like Ras Tanura. They're going to go after all manner of things that are going to increase the potential for, by September, having a global depression, certainly having a global recession by June. And they're going to put the world economy in real dire straits in terms of what can be done and what can't be done about it. So that's probably going to be a lot of the conversation that Trump has with Xi Jinping. It's about the only leverage he'll be able to bring is that if we go on with this, we're going to be in real trouble. All of us are going to be in real trouble. The world economy is going to be in trouble. Xi Jinping might be willing to listen to that and might have some of his own views about it as to who's responsible. But it's really becoming a self-built closing trap for Bibi right now. In a military sense, in a political sense, in a personal sense, it's becoming a trap. How he's going to extricate himself from this, I don't know, but I don't think, he's gotten out of so many messes in the past. Last 25 years, he's gotten out of so many messes. But I don't think he's going to escape this one. And frankly, I don't think Israel's going to escape it either. So we're going to have some real changes in the whole picture there. What is Donald Trump going to do when that happens? Is he going to break away? Is he going to find the relief he needs to execute a quick deal with Iran and pull us out of the entire thing? I don't know, but that would be an opportunity probably if it were to happen. Because Netanyahu is the thing, I believe, the single most important thing keeping Donald Trump in this conflict. So you can't divorce the two. You got to talk about Bibi when you're talking about Donald and vice versa. And both are trouble people right now in many respects, trouble people. Then you got to think about what is the Republican Party going to do domestically and where is it headed other than to some kind of insurrection and some kind of takeover of the government that perpetuates its rule and perpetuates it beyond Trump. That's in some respects being prepared for in this country too. Think of it this way. Think about when Caesar crossed the Rubicon. Caesar was not an imperial entity at that moment. There are some historians even that think that Caesar is a more liberal leader than history has given him credit for, that he was a leader of the people. Caesar's coming back. For whatever reason the assassination was carried out, it was carried out on the Senate floor. He was given adequate warning more than once about it happening. He chose to go into the Senate, he was killed. What happened when he was killed? Immediately almost in Roman time, a civil war broke out. And that civil war pitched a number of parties against others. Octavius was the victor. I think if you've been looking at it from a military point of view at the time Caesar was assassinated and putting together the pieces, you would have said that's probably what's going to happen. There's going to be a civil war, and the dude is going to win. Octavius, later Augustus, wins, beats Mark Antony, beats Cleopatra, beats the combined forces, beats them all, and wins. What does he do? Well, people forget that that was a republic before Caesar crossed the Rubicon and was assassinated. In the civil wars, Octavian wins and becomes Augustus, and the empire is established. It would happen a lot faster today in America. And it would happen because the Republican Party would want it to happen. The leaders of the Republican Party would want it to happen. So we would be thrust into an imperial situation that isn't just me accusing us of being an empire. We would, in fact, be an empire. And one of these people, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, who's going to be the technocrat that puts together the technocracy that results and rules this empire ad infinitum. I mean, that's what I think they're thinking about. And we're looking at that situation being exacerbated and accelerated by this war with Iran. And I can't put it any more directly than the peril we're in. The Republic is going to disappear just like the Republic disappeared when Rome went into its civil wars and came out an empire.